you're an American like me, you've probably learned close to nothing about the Korean War in school. Throughout all my 12 years of education, we very rarely talked about it, or if we did, only while mentioning the much more famous Vietnam War in the same sentence. This phenomenon is so widespread in the United States that the Korean War has been nicknamed the Forgotten War. Yet, quite the opposite is true in South and North Korea, which is understandable. After all, their governments are literally defined by the conflict. But do you know what country loves to talk about the Korean War? China. Too many movies based on the Chinese involvement in Korea have been made to even count. But why is this? Why does the US care so little about a war that China cares about so much? After the Japanese surrender in 1945, Korea, once a colony of the Japanese Empire, was split into a Soviet-influenced zone in the north and an American-influenced zone in the south. However, despite the efforts of both the Soviets and Americans to stop an internal war, the leaders of both Koreas were determined to reunify the country under their own influence. In mid-1950, war broke out, and Korea was officially at war. After being cornered, the Americans pushed all the way to the Chinese border, almost reunifying Korea. And there they found themselves at a crossroads. War hero and general Douglas MacArthur believed that the US should capitalize on their momentum and launch an invasion of China, as well as use nuclear weapons to win the conflict. In an interview, MacArthur said that, quote, he would have dropped between 30 to 50 tactical atomic bombs on air bases and other depots strung across the neck of Manchuria, from just across the Yalu River at Antong to the neighborhood of Hunchun, both Chinese cities. This infuriated President Truman, who urged caution to stop provoking the Chinese. Eventually, MacArthur was relieved of command, but this did nothing to stop the Chinese storm that was about to come. Chinese troops poured into Korea, overwhelming the US-backed forces with their sheer numbers, and pushed from the Chinese border all the way back to the 30th parallel, where Korea stands divided today. The war ended as a stalemate, and both Koreas remain on high alert for any threat of future violence. However, by China's memorialization of the war, you would have thought that they had won. But why is this? Why is China so much more eager than the US to talk about the Korean War? I think the reason that China loves talking about the Korean War so much can be summed up in one word: resilience. It's the same reason Britain memorializes resistance to the Nazis.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender!
Or Americans memorializes going after Japan after Pearl Harbor.
No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
China was constantly bullied by foreign powers throughout the late 19th and early 20th century, by the British during the Opium War, having land stolen by unequal treaties with the Western powers, the Boxer Rebellion suppression by colonizers, and the Japanese full-scale invasion of the Chinese heartland. However, after all of this, the ability of China to stand up and win major battles against America, one of their former oppressors, demonstrates resilience. The countless movies made are not mere historical accounts of what happened. In fact, most of them are simply far from it. But that's not their purpose. Their purpose is to trigger something inside of you, the viewer, to ingrain the spirit of resistance and national pride. This, I believe, is why China loves to talk about the Korean War, because in China's eyes, it's not just a war, it's a testament to the spirit of resilience.